This is a sermon entitled, Who Me? A Prophet? It was preached at Community Congregational Church in Villa Park, Illinois on February 28th, 2016. And it's based or comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 13, verses 31 through 35. And that passage reads, At that very hour, some Pharisees came and said to him, Get away from here, for Herod wants to kill you. He said to them, Go and tell that fox for me, Listen, I am casting out demons and performing cures today. And tomorrow, on the third day, I finish my work. Yet today, tomorrow, and the next day, I must be on my way, because it is impossible for a prophet to be killed outside of Jerusalem. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who were sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. See, your house is left for you. And I tell you, you will not see me until the time comes when you say, Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Last summer, a young man made a video of a social experiment on the streets of New York, and he posted it to YouTube. In the first part of the video, he sat against a storefront by himself, and he held a sign which read, Homeless, need money for weed, drugs, and alcohol. As people walked by, a number of them stopped and gave him money. Now, some of the people who tossed money into the cup said things like, Stay high, man, stay high. Or, make sure you get a big bottle. And after he collected a good amount of money, the screen went dark. In the second part of the video, the same man, dressed the same way, sat in front of the same storefront with a 9 or 10-year-old girl next to him. She actually laid on the sidewalk with her head in his lap, and he held a sign which read, Homeless, single father, need money for family. However, this time, as people walked by, the response was deafening silence. They walked by and put nothing into the cup. The little girl even coughed, but no one stopped. They just went around trying not to see. Finally, a woman stopped, bent down, and put a small amount of cash in the cup. And as she did, she said, This is all I made today, but you need it more than I do. And then the woman, who was homeless herself, asked if she could pray with the man and his daughter. As she walked away, the young man jumped up and told her that he was doing an experiment and that her kindness was the most beautiful thing he'd seen all day. Then he thanked her, gave her more money than she offered him, and called her a hero. And the video ends with the following quote, Sometimes those who have less are the ones who give more. I thought about this video while reading our passage from the Gospel of Luke. In it, Jesus was trying to avoid being interrupted by some Pharisees as he talked about prophets. And since he talked about how Jerusalem kills the prophets, I thought we might take a few moments to actually just think about what it means to be one. As Christians, we often talk about prophets as the leaders who taught others about the ways of God so that they could lead more faithful lives. For example, Amos was a prophet during a peaceful and prosperous time in Israel. And the folks thought that everything was going well because they had used their wealth to build and maintain extravagant shrines to military leaders. It was Amos who reminded the people that they were to worship God rather than the shrines, and that they were to use their treasure to care for the poor and the weak. Needless to say, Amos wasn't very popular. None of the prophets were very popular, and that's because they challenged the authorities as well as the ordinary people of their day by talking honestly about living their faith. Although Jesus was much more than a prophet, he often took on that role. Jesus threatened both religious and public authorities through messages like, "The first shall be last, and the last shall be first," and by calling people to lives of service. And this prophetic role contributed to the reasons that he was seen as a threat by Rome. Being a prophet sounds like a daunting role, one that's meant for somebody else rather than people like you and like me. But what if being prophetic is less complicated than what we think it is? What if being a prophet isn't something God left to the people with the loudest voices and the most chutzpah? What if God calls us, you and I, to be prophets? Now, before you run, and I actually follow close behind, let me tell you about a study that may help us understand how being a prophet can be easier than we think. A few years ago, marketing professor Robert Cialdini conducted a study for an energy company. He had assistants go door to door placing hangers on doorknobs with messages about energy conservation. For some homes, the signs encouraged homeowners to save energy in order to protect the environment. And for other homes, the sign said that people should conserve energy so that future generations could benefit. For other homes, the sign said that homeowners would save money by conserving energy. And for still others, the sign said that most of the homeowners' neighbors were already taking steps to save. And the final message was that if you conserved energy, your bill would be lower and you would save money. At the end of the month, Cialdini and his assistants went to all the homes that received door hangers, and they read the meters and compared the readings to the homes that didn't receive any door hangers at all. And they did this to see which messages affected people's behaviors most. Can you guess which one affected people's behavior the most? Well, they found that only one message actually made a difference. The one that made a difference was, your neighbors are already doing it. Homeowners who received one of the other messages, including the one about saving money, didn't change their lifestyle at all. And in the published study, Cialdini wrote, people look to those around them to decide what to do. People decide what's important and how to live by watching the people around them. Teenagers would probably put it this way: peer pressure is real. And it is. From the time we're small children, we become aware of who we are and how we fit in. And we're constantly comparing ourselves with the people around us, wondering things like, who's the most successful? Who's smarter? Who's the strongest, the most fit, the kindest? And most of the time, we don't even know that we're doing it. We're not aware of it. So let's go back to the idea that prophets teach others about the ways of God. Maybe, just maybe, you and I can be like the prophets or claim our prophetic voice by being intentional about the ways in which we live. In other words, maybe we can accept the challenge to think about ourselves as role models. Today is the third Sunday of Lent. We're on a journey to see how we can live differently, better, more faithfully. Maybe we can change our lives in one or two ways to promote positive peer pressure. Maybe we can create a habit to benefit ourselves and our neighbors, something that others will want to do as well. And I'm not talking about a big change, but something that's small and manageable. For example, since you're here, going to church is something you already do. But what if you shared a small piece of your spiritual life with your friends or a coworker or a neighbor? And I don't mean preach to them, but instead share something that is meaningful to you. Maybe an insight from a book, or how having friends who are part of a faith community makes a difference in your life. Or how donating food to a food pantry or taking part in an outreach project makes you feel. Believe it or not, doing something like this is part of what it means to claim a prophetic voice. We live in a world where too often folks choose to support destructive behavior, like when the people put money in the cup when the guy held the sign which read, "Homeless, need money for weed, drugs, and alcohol." We live in a world where negative attitudes and cynicism are remembered, while hopefulness and compassion are seen as weak. But during the season of Lent, I believe that you and I are called to see that we have a prophetic voice which is meant to be shared. Whether you, like the woman who gave her last dollar to the single father and his daughter, have a generous heart, or you donate soup to a food pantry, or you tell a friend about something in the life of this congregation that makes a difference in your life, I believe God is calling you to make your voice heard. No act of love is too small. No witness of hope is too small. There's a cemetery epitaph that inspires me, and I'll close with it. It reads, "What I gave, I have. What I spent, I had. What I kept, I lost." Each of us have been given unique gifts from God that were meant to be shared with others. My prayer is that you will claim your voice and share your gifts. Amen.